Mini episode 205 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by Sportsology, delivering unconventional columns and webcasts about sports, TV, music, movies, and more. Follow them on the web at sportsology.info.
The FDH Lounge. You want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Welcome to FDH Lounge mini episode number 205. This is going to be a very special joint production today with the FDH Lounge and our good friends at Sportsology, who are actually providing us the hookup as they so often do. And we appreciate it tremendously when they do. Rick Morris here to be joined by Russ Cohen, the proprietor of Sportsology, and the gentleman who was actually the first to become an FDH Lounge dignitary, who is not part of our original crew. It is always good to get together with Russ on the program, as we have done countless times since we first got together with him in 2007. The topic today is the landscape with the NHL lockout, where things sit and what the situation is with the prospects for any kind of a season here at this point, as the league office has now ruled out an entire season. Their most recent offer was rejected, and it now becomes a situation where we now wait to see what happens with the subsequent back and forth between the owners and the players. Actually, the league office, as represented by Commissioner Gary Bettman, Bill Daly, etc., and on the players' side, Donald Fear, a very, no pun intended, fearsome adversary for the league. Again, this is a train wreck that a lot of us have seen coming for a long time now. As far back as early 2010, when we were doing our FDH Lounge predictions for the next decade in a whole host of areas, we indicated that Donald Fear being retained by the Players Union was going to be a big sign of trouble to come. The players felt as though they had gotten completely steamrolled in the 2004-2005 shutdown, and they had. There is no question about that. They had gotten steamrolled completely, and so it's a situation now where they're looking to get some ground back. The owners are conversely looking for even more in the way of give-backs from the players as far as the revenue split. So it's a very iffy situation. Again, early games have already been canceled. We have now passed the league's deadline for what would be an 82-game season, and it continues to dwindle from here. And we continue to wait and see what is going to become of this season, and where we're at, and how many games are going to be able to be salvaged in the end, if any, not least of which, as far as interest goes, would be this year's NHL Winter Classic to be held when the new year rolls around at the Big House in Michigan, between two members of the original six, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Detroit Red Wings. This is a game, of course, if it happens, Russ Cohen will be covering it, as he has all previous Winter Classics, and as he has all of the outdoor games except for the Heritage Classic in Calgary a few years back. Russ was even at the original Heritage Classic in Edmonton prior to that. So, again, he has a tremendous amount of passion and enthusiasm for the Winter Classic, and this manifests itself in a new book that he has coming out on the NHL Winter Classic, and he is now putting the final touches on editing the book, and we will be speaking of that with him when we get a chance to talk to him momentarily. Again, always a pleasure to have Russ on the program with us. FDH Lounge dignitary and Sportsology proprietor of this here hookup, Russ Cohen, good friend of ours, joining us once again. Russ, good to have you on, my man. How you doing today?
Good, Rick. Thanks.
Let's take a look and see what the situation is here, starting with the lockout, and starting with where we sit with the rejection of the league's offer that they went public with, the alleged 50-50 split that was to be out there. The league has now ruled out any chance of a full season being played, which wasn't a mystery to us because we'd already missed the original start of the season here. So are you retaining any optimism whatsoever for anything resembling a full slate of games, even 50, 60 games, or do you think we're rapidly dwindling past that?
No, I think 60 games is the reality now. I think none of us thought there would be a full season, but then there seemed to be that potential of it, and even I had a little bit of optimism because I felt like the offer was fair from the owners and the players might actually take it. And then once I saw the players offer 3 different offers instead of trying to work off the offer the owners gave them, which is what it's really expected in a negotiation, then I knew there was a problem. And that is what you could sort of put on the shoulders of Donald Fehr and his team, because I don't take sides. I think there's 50-50 blame, but I think that was a very bad miscalculation by the Players Association, thinking that, well, we could give you these 3 other offers, and if you don't like them, we'll just tell the public that, well, we offered a 50-50 deal and the NHL didn't want it, but then 2 of the deals were not even 50-50. One of them ended up being 50-50 in the 5th or 6th year, and then the third one was all hypothetical because the mathematics weren't even worked out, and Donald Fehr had to admit to that. So if that didn't give you an idea of where they were coming from, nothing did.
Well, let's talk about that. The by far the biggest change in the landscape from the last time, where the players just absolutely got steamrolled in the negotiations. They bring in Donald Fehr, who was pretty much undefeated lifetime with Major League Baseball. That was something we labeled on this show at the time, the players going to the see you in hell card, because when you're bringing in Donald Fehr, it's pretty clear that you are trying to show the owners that it is going to be anything but the way that it went down last time. It strikes me, I don't know if it's been your perception or not, Donald Fehr seems a little more publicly reserved than he did when he was with MLB. Maybe he's trying to live down a reputation or whatever the case may be, but he seemed to be, particularly in the strike of 94, a lot more publicly angry than I've seen him this time. Have you seen any kind of change in his public demeanor, as a matter of strategy or anything else?
I think it's just a life change for him. I think he took this on because he felt like he could do better for the players, but I also think he realizes that if he's out front and center, and he's going to become the lightning rod, and if he's not becoming it already. So I think he is trying to stand back as much as he can and let his brother sort of do this setting up of the deals with Daly, and then, Fehr and Gary Bettman come in, and then they do the hard negotiating. So I think that is a strategy. So far, it's failing. And, something to point out, for all the talk of Donald Fehr saying, well, this deal is so bad that we'll lose $1.55 billion, well, there's a combined loss, which I believe is just for the month of November, but it could be for all the games, $760 million. So if you want to split that up, they're already more than a third of the way there for losing whatever HRR they thought they were going to get. And when they lost October, they already lost more of a percentage than the 12% they were bickering over as far as a rollback, because the rollback would probably come back to them because the league would have probably been okay, would probably have made the right revenue, and they had never not gotten the rollback money back in any of those other years. Every year they got it back. They got it back this year as well for last year. So they would have gotten that too. But instead, what ended up happening is they end up being more than 12% under the gun. So that already turned out to be a bad deal. So, again, it leads you to believe that both sides are being a little greedy. The NHL finally did make a good step and give some transparency and put their deal out there. The PA has never put their deal out there. They've actually just leaked drips and drabs to certain media. but they've never put it completely out there like the NHL did for anybody to read. And so I think, and again, we could go back to the very beginning where even Gary Bettman said, hey, I tried to meet with Donald Fehr 3 times before the draft, and they said they weren't ready. And so obviously that was a strategy too. So everybody is quick to blame the league, and I understand why. And if you like Gary Bettman or don't like him, I understand why. But I do think these other factors all factor into it.
Well, what's interesting to me in what you said is that heretofore Donald Fehr has not minded being the public face and taking the slings and arrows, and has felt that it's a net plus anyways. And I think he got that from his mentor, Marvin Miller, who always looked at it the same way. You wonder if maybe he's coming around to the perception that Donald Fehr being out there every day is the briar patch that Gary Bettman and the owners want to be thrown into here. Having Donald Fehr as the face of the players, and it's been held up, and I think it's more than a cliche. It's true that the hockey players are by and large in the Big Four sports in this country are the most down to earth, are the most relatable players by and large, and the sense that Fehr being out there can only serve to erode that perception and make things easier on the owners. Is there a sense in what you're thinking that he thinks that the league and the owners want him to be out there, and that's why he's taking the tack publicly that he is?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that is a part of it, and I think that's well thought through on your part, and I think that is a factor. But again, I go back and I look at things and I say there's 700 players in the NHL. They all are not on the same page. I guarantee you that. Now, we know that there's probably 4 or 5 NHL owners that are not on the same page, but that's not a majority. I kind of wonder how long Donald Fehr will be able to hold a majority when guys have missed some October checks, are going to miss all their November ones. And I understand they have a war chest and all that's well and good, but these players all have expenses that are well above what you and I think is good or bad or prudent. And I think at some point some of those things are going to kick in for some of these players, because some of them that are playing overseas are breaking even for the insurance money, because the insurance costs are astronomical. And then some of them are making big money, but that's really like the upper 5%. And then there's plenty guys, like one of my friends always likes to say, hey, no one's calling Brian Boyle. He's not going to, he's going to be sitting at home. And he's not a huge salary guy. So I see that. I see some things on Twitter. Like I saw Dan Hamuse, as an example, posted an article, I think it was from the Winnipeg Free Press, that talked about how the league wanted to really get those 82 games in because the owners signed a bunch of guys to signing bonuses for the last couple of years, knowing that there might be a lockout. And, of course, once you get that signing bonus, you've got that signing bonus. So some guys got paid twice in a calendar year. So a guy like Hamuse, who just signed a new deal, got a $2 million signing bonus. Now, the headline was something like, Gary, all he cares about is the money, something to that effect. It's not exactly. Meanwhile, Dan Hamuse is listed in the article as getting a $2 million bonus. So I don't know if he realizes what that public perception looks like to the average person. And even though they might be mad at Gary Bettman, they might also look at that and say, well, you're covered too. So we as the fans are not.
That's an excellent point, yeah, because it is the fans, it is the court of public opinion that everyone is playing to as much as possible here in order to try to gain some leverage. In as much as chronologically, this is the third of 3 very major sports labor situations in the last couple of years, with the NFL just missing a little bit of their preseason, and then the NBA missing the first chunk of their season last year. It's interesting to compare and contrast in the different situations here. One of the things that came to my mind when you were talking about the players and missing paychecks is that there was so little confidence on behalf of the NBA players that they would be able to get through this, that they'd actually set up a war chest. I haven't heard about anything like that for the NHL players.
Oh, no,
so they don't have any banked money coming in, do they?
No, they do. That's why I said.
Oh, they do.
I
okay.
did. I said that before. Yeah, you may have missed it. They do have a
war
chest.
All right. I misinterpreted what you said. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, please
yes,
clarify that, because if that's the kind of money that's coming in, and again, it's not going to nearly.
But it's still not going to be near what they're making.
Yeah, it's not okay. So that part of it's very interesting. So all right. So they did have the foresight on that to have at least some of that money coming in. As far as it goes, also too, in terms of targeting something here, of course, the big thing for the NBA, maybe the biggest day in their regular season would be Christmas Day. The traditional games that have always been on TV there. One wonders in the league offices if they've had circled for some time here, possibly starting this thing with the Winter Classic, depending on how it goes. Have you heard anything about that as far as we continue to move back our expectations for when the season's going to get going?
Well, just hearsay about it, but I don't think they would do that because, well, there's a bunch of things at play, and things could change. And this is the bad thing about social media is everybody's like, well, now that they cancel this, next week the NHL is due to make a payment to Michigan University, and maybe they don't want to make the payment, and maybe they'll cancel the Winter Classic. And I'm thinking, well, maybe they'll call Michigan and say, can you wait a couple weeks? I mean, that's always a possibility. So I still think the reason the Winter Classic is not canceled is because everybody wants it. People could, there's a lot of media, me included, and I'm part of it, and I try and remain very impartial. And I think there's a lot of media that think, well, the players think they have this edge if they get the Winter Classic canceled. But there is no edge for the players if the Winter Classic gets canceled because, A, it's hockey-related revenue that they'd be splitting. B, it's the best kind of press that they get all year with HBO and that. It actually lets ordinary citizens know who they are because otherwise they don't. So I don't see where it benefits the players if the Winter Classic's canceled. So I think that's a bunch of baloney. So is it possible the season could start then? Yes. I don't think that's the plan, though. I do think the plan is to have this 60-game season. I think the 82, they were just sort of, throwing it up there and hoping that cooler heads would prevail. But now that that's not going to happen, I think a 60-game one is possible. And I think that's fine. If they go 60, I don't think anybody in the end will have a problem. Nobody in the NBA had a problem other than saying, well, condensed schedule was tough and guys were getting a little more injured. Yes, we get that. But beyond that, no one's talking about it this year like they cared about it last year, like it killed the sport or anything.
Okay, and I want to circle back to the Winter Classic, but let me follow up on your thread there.
Yeah.
Just looking at the calendar chronologically, and we're just kind of spitballing here. I'm not going to try and hold you to a specific date. What's your sense in terms of like how far back into the summer this could be pushed? If we're going to get a 60-game slate, what would be the approximate drop-dead date for getting this thing going?
Well, it's interesting because my original thought at the Stanley Cup, last Stanley Cup was I told some friends I thought it would be Halloween. That's when it would start. And it looked close like it could happen then, but it didn't. So then my second thought was Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving looked good, but now they canceled all of November, so we know that's not going to happen. So my next thought would be I'm sure they want the beginning of December. I'm sure of it. I don't know if that will happen, but I'm sure that that's what they're hoping for, like a December 2nd, 1st or 2nd kind of start. I think they can live through it through Thanksgiving. I don't think there's any kind of major bump that they're going to be missing out on. And we have to remember the NBC national games, not the NBC network ones, because I think they can get past missing some of those because that's not big NBC money. But the NBC national ones don't start until December, January. So, and it might even be January. So I think that's when we might see the power of NBC getting into this because they've paid the NHL. They didn't expect the lockout, I'm sure, and I'm sure they're not going to be happy if they pay the NHL through the lockout.
True, but what strikes me when you say that is what a form of controversy it was during the NFL lockout. And that ultimately, the beginning of the end of that lockout was when the players took the owners to court on that and seemed to show conclusively that the owners had an incentive to push forward the lockout because they were going to make the TV money regardless. Why has that not manifested itself in this labor situation here with the NHL players trying to use that as some sort of legal precedent?
Because I don't think the courts would care. They care about football a lot more in this country. I think everything the NHLPA was fighting the NHL on, they lost. They fought them in Alberta. They lost. They fought them in Quebec. They lost. They did try and have some unfair labor practice cases there, and it didn't happen. So those went out the window. And then recently, as you probably heard or didn't hear, the owners were given permission to the GMs to contact their players. So they did that. And then, of course, we see the writing, that could be unfair labor practice, and Steve Fear comments on it, yet there's no case. Basically, at the end of the day, the NHL is a private business, and even though there's more teams here, it's really more of a Canadian business still, because they have the big office in Toronto. Even though there's offices in New York as well, we know a lot of stuff is run out of Toronto. And I think at the end of the day, it's hard for the United States to sort of take aim at that, any of the courts or anything, when there is so much business overseas. It's not the same with the NBA or the NFL or any of the others. They don't have teams in other countries.
Yeah, okay. That makes all the sense in the world to me, that a judge in Toronto or magistrate or whatever is not going to feel bound by what some guy in a robe in Minneapolis said. So that's a good point. It just, again, as you said, points out the differences in the situation here. As far as the Winter Classic goes, again, I know that's something that you, for a multitude of reasons, are rooting to be able to cover this year and be able to see. I know that you haven't missed one and haven't missed an outdoor NHL game aside from, I think, the second Heritage Classic in Calgary. Right. So these experiences, I know, are leading you. I know you're in the final stages here. Please talk about this to a great degree. This upcoming book that you've got coming out on the Winter Classic.
Yeah, it's called The Winter Classic, The NHL Savior. If you type that in on Sportsology, you'll get the link. You could pre-purchase it off of Motivational Press's website, or by mid-November, I'm being told, it'll be everywhere. You'll be able to go on Amazon, wherever you like, and get it. It covers all of the Winter Classics. So we don't feel that it's totally integral that this one gets played or not as to whether the book does well or not, because it's only a portion of the last chapter that we say, hey, this is what's set up for the next one, but there is potential labor dispute, and you never know what's going to happen. So we might change the wording a little bit in the next day, but if not, that's in there. So we're pretty much covered for that. There's nothing else we could do because we have to go to press. It's ready to go to press now. So by tonight or tomorrow, it'll be put to bed. So we're going full steam ahead with it because there were 5 that were played and they were glorious, and there's plenty of fans of those teams that even though they might be mad at the league, hey, we're not the league. We're a couple of writers. We're a couple of guys that went to all these games, me and Mike, just like the rest of the world. And guess what? We've learned a lot of stuff from those games, a lot of inside stuff. There's a lot of pictures that you haven't seen. There's a lot of things you might not know. There's some funny stories that happened along the way when we're out on the road. I think a hockey fan, especially if they're going to be missing the game, might be able to immerse themselves in that and say, hey, that's kind of cool, especially if you're a Sabres or a Penguins or a Capitals or a Rangers or a Flyers fan or any of the other teams that played in it. So Bruins, so I think there's a great chance for that to happen. Would I love to see the game played? Sure, because then we could go to the next one and have that one there. But it wasn't the main focus because we could always do an update. When they have another one, hey, guess what? Beauty of the ebook. We could put out a second edition even with a hardcover if we want. We'll worry about it when it happens or doesn't happen. But right now, this is going to happen, and it's going to happen before Black Friday. So we hope that people will want to read it because we put a lot of work into it. And again, it's very hockey-centric, and we cover everything. We cover 24/7. We cover line combinations for the games. We cover quotes pre-post games. We cover the Legends games, if they were played, if we got to talk to the players or not. We tried to get some of that in there. We got pictures from that. So it's pretty amazing coverage, I think, considering you might have seen some of this on the air, but you probably just saw a small package of it and a small piece of it, and there's so much, as you know, that goes into the Winter Classics, like even the one at Philly last year for all the different games that were played, and I went to 2 of them, and Mike went to 4 of them. Mike went to the other high school game and the other college game that was Penn State. And I want to say Merrimack, but I forget right off the top of my head. And so you think about that for a minute, and that was another batch of outdoor events. So I think that's the beauty of it.
Well, in bringing it all full circle, Russ, how do you see the game basically in the light of where the NHL is at right now? In other words, we get an abbreviated season underway. We get this game in there this year at a time of great peril for this league, the second time in a decade now that they've lost games. What does it mean? How important is it to the game right now? I mean, I think the title of your book gives away your thoughts on that, but please elaborate on the importance to it.
Well, it's huge. It's something where it gives a casual fan a connection to hockey. If you're talking about the Winter Classic, now it gives a connection for the average fan, especially on a day, generally on January 1st, when there's nothing, there's bad bowl games on, they're not the good ones, and people are home, everybody's home just about, and they're looking for something to watch. And it's something great to watch. You get Bob Costas. You get a lot of good things out of it. So I think that's a natural, and I think that's a natural fit. Now, as far as the game itself, overall, in the big scheme of things, it certainly helped it, and it certainly could continue to help it. Of course, the game's always bigger than just one game. So if they did cancel it, could they still have a season? Sure. There's no question. But I think when they cancel that, people are going to assume that the season's canceled, and it doesn't necessarily mean that, because the last lockout went all the way till February 26th until they pulled the plug on the entire season. So we've got a long way to go for that. So we'll see. But I think if the NHL doesn't have the Winter Classic, it will hurt. I think it will hurt the next time they try and sell the Winter Classic, because people have bought tickets and you never get some of those fees back, as you know. So I think, and even if they do give them all those fees back, we'll see if that happens. Wouldn't hold your breath. But either way, the fans that were kind of hoping to go, now are we going to go and do it again? I don't know. There's always a lot of fans talking trash online and saying, well, they do this and I'm not coming back and I'm not doing this. And sure, that was the case for baseball in '94. And I understand this is the fourth stoppage. I do. But when push comes to shove, hockey is that niche market with very passionate fans, possibly the most passionate, because they don't have the greatest numbers, but they have good numbers. Will they dwindle a little? Yeah, probably, because maybe a few people that latched on last couple of years after the last labor outage might have really enjoyed it and started watching. And if they leave, they might have just been passersby. It happens with all sports. But if you're a hardcore hockey fan, I honestly don't think that many hardcore hockey fans are just going to walk away. I think, but they're going to lose some numbers. There's no way around it.
Yeah, no question about that. Hopefully we don't lose too many fans out there for this very awesome game that we love. And certainly my family has been instructed that I need to be opening up a package that has this book in it on Christmas Day. So my family's already been apprised. I expect to be getting this book for Christmas. Russ, always a pleasure, my man. Thanks so much for doing this joint Sportsology FDH Lounge mini episode today.
No, thank you, Rick. I really appreciate it. I do. And everybody out there, hang in there. There's other hockey. Go watch junior hockey or the AHL right now. It's still pretty great.
Exactly. This too shall pass. You can always find great hockey out there and always great coverage from you, Russ. Thanks very much.
Yep, or NCAA. Don't want to leave them out. Take care, Rick.
As we bring the show to a close, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude to NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, all Clear Channel affiliates, TNT, TBS, USA, UPN, Deadspin.com, YouTube.com, YTMND.com, MySpace.com, various blogs, Fox News, CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, IamBoard.com, Billboard.com, Google.com, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN News, ESPN Classic, NBA TV, NFL Network, Sports Time Ohio, Athlon Magazine, Comedy Central, Cartoon Network, The Boomerang Channel, QVC, BET, The Spice Channel, Steno Notebooks, Manwich, Papermate Office Supplies, waitresses, strippers, bartenders, garbage men, janitors, microwave popcorn, the writers of The Office, Scrubs, Entourage, My Name is Earl, Oz, Metalocalypse and the Boondocks, Aquafina, and the Periodic Table of Elements.